and I'm joined now to discuss the rights and wrongs of it by Jennifer Carroll McNeill, Minister of State and Fine Gael TD, and Jed Nash, Labour Party spokesperson on finance. I might come to you first, Jed. 1.25 billion, an enormous amount of money. Is it enough?
It is a huge amount of money, but we can't afford it. We can't afford not to do it. And I think really the scale of this amount of money that's been targeted at people who are on social protection payments and indeed other payments and support is interesting, in that I think it's a commentary about the inadequacy of the budget package that was introduced last September.
That would be the biggest budget package we've ever seen.
Yeah, but if you look at it in terms of how that was broken down, we've had €4 billion in once-off measures, and I've said since budget day that once the once-off measures melted away like snow in a ditch, as they're about to at the end of February, then people who are poor are going to continue to be poor. No structural changes were made to the social protection system and the situation in which low-paid people find themselves. If you look at even the tax cuts that were introduced last year, if you're on €25,000 a year, you'll be €16 a month better off. If you're €100,000 a year, you'll be on a single income, you'll be €75 per month better off. So budgets are always about choices and about deploying the resources that we have in a proper targeted way. I don't know why, in terms of what we read in the newspapers this morning, the top up, if I can describe it as such, to social welfare recipients is actually lower than the weekly rates across the board. I can't understand why either. The child benefit package is €100 per child, when the child benefit package per child per month is €140. So we need a discussion actually about the adequacy of welfare payments, the reason why 20% of all Irish workers are on low pay. This is just going to get us to the budget just about. It's inadequate. It's not properly targeted. Only 400 million of that 1.25 billion package is actually going to be spent on social welfare, and we know where those who are feeling the most strain are. It's lone parents, people parenting alone. There's no sense that there's any improvements in terms of working family payment, no sense of improvements in terms of the extension of the fuel allowance package to those who really need support, and no sense either of the that there's going to be anything more on the way later on this year. The resources are there. It's about targeting them properly.
Okay. Jennifer, that sounds like a terrible litany of failings in this package. It is inadequate.
I'm sorry, I just can't, I genuinely can't believe what I'm hearing. An €11 billion budget to provide supports to people in a targeted way and a universal way, recognising inflation at what it was at 9% and energy prices at what they were at the budget in 2023. We held money back because we didn't know where that was going to go, either in terms of inflation or in terms of energy prices. Both seem to have, they're still increasing, but not, or certainly inflation, but prices are increasing, but not at the rate that we thought it was going to be. I genuinely can't believe what I'm hearing, that €11 billion package, which was distributed over once-off measures and more permanent spending, that somehow wasn't adequate. The reason that they, as Jed well knows from a macroeconomic perspective, that you do once-off measures is because it gets the money to people quickly, but it also doesn't bank it into the system indefinitely in terms of sustainability of the public finances. We have tried to produce sustainable public finances in the long term, which has meant that we have had packages like €11 billion to provide support to people. This is just unbelievable.
What about Jed's point, though? If you're on 25 grand, you'll be better off by the tune of €16, and you're on 100 grand, you're better off by €100.
The measures across the board were about providing support to everybody, about providing support through tax changes, about reducing prices at the petrol pump, about providing support to everybody, and also making significant additional payments to people at the most in the most vulnerable areas, whether they were lone parents, whether they were working families, extra payments to carers, extra payments for people who are the most vulnerable, and permanent increases in social welfare rates. We have a whole economy to look after. Just because you're working doesn't mean you're immune from the cost of living pressures. Just because you're working doesn't mean that the prices are any different for you than anybody else. And we need to provide supports to everybody. And that we don't have any cliff edges. We need to provide supports to businesses. Why? I don't hear Jed talking about that. Because businesses maintain employment links.
Okay.
That's what we did with employment wage subsidy. That's what we're trying to do with TBAS, with the energy support scheme. That's why we're trying to do that better.
We'll let Jed
I can't believe this from the Labour Party.
Jed, why don't you care about business or the squeeze middle?
I do, and it's why I get up in the morning, is to make sure we have a functioning economy, but an economy that works for everybody. We don't have enough discussion in this country about the number of people who are actually working but are also experiencing severe poverty. That's why we thought that the minimum wage increase was inadequate in itself. We know that we're on a pathway to a living wage, and there's a dispute about how that's calculated.
If all of these things are inadequate, though, 11 billion euros was the package in October, 1.25 billion. How much would Labour like to see spent?
Yeah, we actually said initially, I think we were first out of the traps to say that it should be a €4 billion package. We would have spent about 2.5
4 billion today.
4 billion euro between September and Christmas into the new year in terms of the once-off measures. But we actually would have spent about €2.5 billion more, and identified how we would actually raise that, because we know that we've spoken about a series of wealth taxes. We spoke as well about reducing a series of very expensive reliefs that actually don't really benefit everybody, that really should be reviewed annually, and are only reviewed after a period of years. The big issue that we have in this country at the moment, I think, is about, we have a two-tier economy. People are doing really, really well, and that's really good. We've got a strong economy, but you can't eat good GDP figures and they won't heat the house. It's excellent. It's really, I think everybody can be proud of the country in terms of where it's going, in terms of our economic development on the macro level. But there are far too many people, while Ireland itself will actually not experience a recession, and that's a good thing. Too many households across this country feel like they're in recession at the moment and simply can't afford to do the basics.
Why didn't you plunder the wealth tax we hear so much about and actually do a bit more?
We have very significant wealth taxes in this state. We have inheritance tax, we have capital gains tax, we have capital acquisitions tax, the local property tax, depending on where you live, is a very, very significant wealth tax, some of which is opposed actually by left-wing parties, which is astonishing.
Is Labour opposed to the
not the Labour Party?
But not Labour, but just in terms of the discourse.
The Minister has clarified that.
I didn't suggest it. I suggested Labour. This is our wealth tax. We have this range of wealth taxes right across the board, and we have one of the most progressive income tax systems across the OECD, which means that the more you earn, the more you pay in income tax. We have all of those things, and we are trying to maintain full employment and drive investment into this state, which we do extremely well because of the calibre of the people that we have working here. It is easier for people like me to go abroad and to sell Ireland as a destination for places for jobs, for places for investment. As a consequence of that, as a consequence of all of that work, we have enough money in the bank to be able to pay for things like social welfare supports, like changes to universal measures, to tax changes here and there where we can, to keep things balanced and keep things sustainable. And we do it in a careful, sustainable way.
There should have been 4 billion spent.
Well, I mean, really, we had an 11 billion euro package.
No, just clarify that, 4 billion between September and the end of last year, and that's what we had said in once-off measures. That was right. We'll spend an extra 2.5 billion in terms of the entire budget package for this year. I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Nobody is saying, I'd said earlier this week, we should be spending about we said 1.23 billion, or actually €2 million ahead of us on that. But the point about it is the proportion of this package that's been spent on targeted welfare measures is less than the package that we would have developed. And we've also as well got €400 million to continue the 9% VAT reduction for the hospitality sector.
I'm slightly confused. So they spent 200 million more than you wanted, but it's still in
2 million.
Just don't get it.
The difference here is that we would have spent the bulk of that package in targeted measures for people who needed support the most. For example, people who are living alone,
you made a point.
an additional €40 on child benefit and so on.
Okay.
So only 400 million
child benefit has gone up.
actually being used in social welfare.
The focus of the government very significantly on the social welfare side. There has been additional money for, first of all, for carers, for people on the working family payment, for people on the disability allowance, for people on the living alone allowance, extra money in terms of fuel. We've also extended, as you know, the means test to bring people into the carers allowance in the first instance. Heather Humphreys has gotten more money. We have had the largest social welfare packages through Heather Humphreys in that ministry than we have ever seen before, and the support has not ever been matched. And at the same time, it is not just about people on social welfare. We have 4.4% unemployment. The huge majority of people in this state are working and not necessarily eligible for social welfare. And all of those people are facing the pinch as well. All of those people are facing higher prices through inflation. We don't want inflation to get sticky. We need prices to come down because it impacts everyone, and we are trying to do that in the right way now to make sure we get the best effect.
I'm afraid we will have to leave it there this morning. I am very appreciative to both of you. That is Jennifer Carroll MacNeill, Minister of State and Fine Gael TD, and Jed Nash, Labour Party spokesperson on finance.